Bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum bum.
I'm Allie.
And I'm Gabby. And we're real-life sober BFFs exploring spirituality,
social issues,
all things sobriety,
and staying present in a world full of distractions.
Come join us on this journey.
We've been waiting for you.
Bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. So, happy birthday.
Thank you. I'm so excited. It's weird. I was like counting my my vitamins last night and like getting them all in my vitamin thing, and I was like, wow, what a change. 2 years ago, I was like in the first stages of browning out, and now I'm counting my vitamins after having like going to the grocery store with my boy. Like things are so different now. So,
That's awesome.
thank you.
So, this is our introductory episode for the My Sober BFF podcast. I am Gabby, to give you a face to put with a name.
And I'm Allie. Welcome. This is so exciting. This is something that we have kind of it's kind of weird how this whole thing happened. I would say it's pretty organic.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily something that we've thought about doing for a while, but we thought about doing many of things, and this was always like, I think, the thing that we had to do first, the thing that was calling to us, that we kind of overlooked or didn't see, and finally it just smacked us both in the forehead. So we're super excited about this.
I think like most things that we do in our lives, it kind of came backwards. We had all of like the other things, and then we were like, oh, well, like, hey.
This is a great idea. Wait. So
Yeah.
what's funny about that is, like, for the listeners, for people that might not know who we are, or maybe know one of us and not the other, Gabby and I have known each other for over 10 years, I
I
would
think
say.
we're right about 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah, right. We've known each other for a decade, and we've gone through so many lives together. Her and I are kind of the queens of reinventing ourselves, and
Yes.
it's just super interesting to think back, kind of even in retrospect of how I was thinking like 2 years ago, my life has changed. In 10 years, my life has completely changed. Because Gabby, do you want to tell them like where we met and like give your version? Because mine might be a little bit different or a little foggy.
Yeah, so about 10 years ago, I was living with my best friend at a house, and we somehow, like, everybody that lived in our house got a job at this restaurant. So we were already kind of like partiers or whatever, and we got this job. We go in, we're doing like our onboarding orientation, and Allie was like, big personality, like catches our attention, and we're like, oh, hey, you can sit with us. And we ended up like inviting everyone back to our house after orientation to like study our workbook, which ended up just being like, for every question we asked, everybody takes a shot basically, and it was just a complete drunken mess nightmare. But that was the beginning of our relationship, which obviously blossomed into something beautiful. But it started out with the restaurant that we worked in was a hot mess. They also did not care if we drank while we were at work most of the time. So it was kind of just a cycle of us partying at work, partying at my house, and it just kind of never ended for a couple of years.
It was insane. So like, look, in retrospect, it was really odd because so we get this job at this restaurant, and the whole thing is just so bizarre. And I tell people this all the time because I've worked in and out of restaurants for freaking almost 20 years. And I tell people 15, whatever. I'm not going to age myself. But I tell people all the time that was probably my favorite restaurant ever to work in, despite all the drunken chaos. It was like everybody that met in that restaurant, it was almost like this mecca of broken souls that also had healing powers underneath. If I look back at like all of the different people that worked there, it's like, holy crap, like these were some pretty unique human beings. How did we all end up in this hellhole? Like there was like the owners were crazy and like literally crazy. Like they were Bosnian and Albanian, and they were like legit that like I just can't even explain how insane this place was. Like they would like smoke on the line, like smoke cigarettes. The owner would be smoking cigarettes in front of where all the food was, and he would just like motherfuck everyone. And so like it was normal for if we got busy. And by the way, like we also had to write out our tickets. They didn't have computer systems. The computer systems were supposed to be coming for like months. And so we had to write out our tickets and we couldn't abbreviate. And like you also had to have this really good handwriting. And so he would like, if we would get busy, which would be like 4 freaking tickets, he would lose his shit on everybody. And so then we had like these bussers so he was Bosnian, these bussers were Albanian. They didn't like each other, but then they kind of liked each other. I don't know, like if they met like in a networking group or whatever, like knew each other as their family. And so he would just lose his shit on everybody. And so finally one day he like starts yelling at this busser. And the busser's like way taller than him. Mind you, like Frank, he's never going to listen to this because I don't think he knows anything about technology. But like Frank is like 5'3" and like old and like smokes 17 packs of cigarettes a day. So you know he has no endurance. And he's like yelling. And this busser is like 6'2" and might be a fighter on the black market. And he's like, nah, dude. And so he starts yelling at him. And I was like, oh, Frank's about to get his ass beat finally. Nope, that's not what happened. I bet that's what you thought happened too. No. Instead, Frank grabs a steak knife. It is a Friday night. It is busy. And he freaking goes to stab this guy in the hand. And then like the guy's like, whoa! And like it's all this commotion. There's guests out front. And then Frank's just like, shouldn't have been talking to me that way. All right, I need you to run this food. And I was like, this place is fucked up. But yeah, they like, plus it would have been like really fucked up. But then like we were also allowed to drink the whole time. So I'm like drunk watching this happen, also wondering where like my 17 tables food is. And it was just insane. But like it was really interesting, like me and you and like even like our other friends like that lived in your house, like especially Fro, like there was just like this instantaneous bond. Like we already knew each other.
Yeah.
Like I've never had a close friendship in that sense to where like it almost felt like I've already seen you naked. I already know you. And at that time it was very foggy because of all of the alcohol. But like now as our relationship has grown over 10 years, it's just like, okay, so we've done this before in some other sense, like in some other universe, in some other life, like we've already been down for each other and like had projects and been best friends. So, and we've had that confirmed, which I'm sure we'll talk about at a later date. But yeah,
absolutely.
so it's really interesting. We did that, and then that restaurant shut down. I know, oops, I should have had a disclaimer. Sorry to shock everybody. But that restaurant surprisingly shut down and didn't even tell any of us about it. We just showed up for work. We were so surprised.
Yeah. Who could have seen that coming?
Not a damn.
Yeah, so we met, and like many people do who struggle with addiction, we bonded over our drug of choice, which was alcohol. And for many, many years, we both, whether we were together or not, continued to use alcohol as our coping mechanism. And there were many times that alcohol also caused problems in our relationship. Again, another surprise. I can't believe that alcohol would ever be the root of, fight or drama. So Allie and I have been known to go at it like sisters, which makes sense, which we will talk about in another episode, right. I'm sure. Again, the confirmation of our soul connection. But in a way that, like, most people probably would not fight with their friends. If they did, they probably would not continue that friendship. So we've definitely been through it, and looking back at it now, we can definitely see that all of it happened for a reason, and it was all, it just made our relationship much stronger, and just, in the end, I won't say better people, but brought us, closer together as better versions of our higher selves, our better selves. Or truer selves, maybe is a better word. I keep saying better, and I don't want to say better because that's not the word I'm looking for.
More evolved.
Yes.
We've definitely become more evolved and learned some lessons along the way. What's interesting too is, like, Gabby and I as well, and I feel like that, for me at least, this is what I hope the podcast will be. So Gabby and I have always lived separate lives. And even in times where we didn't have necessarily direction or any business declaring that we had direction, i.e. like taking shots of like Everclear to the throat, and like doing, like, just getting hammered, like, even then, like, we knew we had purpose, which I think is so many, like, as I speak to people that are still struggling in addiction, most everyone I talk to has some type of purpose, has a deep purpose, is extremely intelligent or empathetic or turned in, and they're just not tuned in, turned in, tapped on, or whatever Esther Hicks said, and that's kind of where we were, like, we knew that there was something for us. And we knew exactly, like, we could literally see it even in our drunken state, exactly where we were supposed to be. But we just wanted it right then. And it was like, oh, turns out, like, now looking back, I didn't have a beer and a shot in my hand in those visions. But like, so we lived these separate lives, and as we would grow, and we would grow separately, and it would just turn out that we would always end up growing together. It was really weird. Like, I moved to Chicago literally like 3 weeks after. Gabby was like, no, I'm going to move to Chicago too. And like, there we lived together, and then we grew separately. It wasn't like a relationship that would necessarily be codependent. It was just that we always view magic happens when we're close to each other. When we're working together, we just have that weird sense, like, we always come back to each other. And so my idea for this, or my vision for this podcast, I would say, is we don't think that we're better now, like how Gabby said. I think that the work's never done, that we just continue to evolve. And for me personally, which you'll hear about in an episode, I'm guessing like probably the one after this or the one after that, because both of us are going to do solo episodes, so you can really understand us. But for me personally, like, the work's never done. Therefore, like, sobriety was just a door for me, personally. And it was a door to a deeper sense of spirituality, a deeper sense of purpose, a deeper inner knowing of who I am. And so the magic of this podcast is really going to be, for me, like, to share the beauty, to share everything else. Because before I got sober, I couldn't even imagine a week without alcohol. Never mind a month, never mind 6 months, never mind today. She said to me earlier, happy birthday, because this is my 2-year anniversary, which is serendipitous in itself. And because I took the alcohol and the junk and the toxicity and the thoughts that came with it out of my life, I created so much more space to fill it up with things that that are meaningful for me. And so being able to share my story and other people's stories that are sober, and Gabby's story, and to share the vision and just so much more, that's important to me. Sorry, I just rambled, but get used to it.
No, that was great. Yeah, I agree. I think that sobriety was, well, for me, my sobriety came as a side effect of finding my spirituality. I found that I could no longer continue to grow my connection with myself and with the universe and oneness and source and God, whatever you want to call it. I could no longer continue to grow that connection and drink. It was not compatible. So, yeah, sobriety for me just naturally, it came to be along with, a couple of episodes at the end of my drinking that were just glaring instances of me not showing up as my true self and just showing up as the darkest parts of myself that were not representative of who I want to be and who I want to share with the world. So some people will call that rock bottom. I've had several, but those were some really embarrassing moments that just kind of sealed the deal for me to know that, like, I can't continue to grow my connection and show up as my my version of who I want to be in this world and who I want to be to impact other lives and continue to drink. So my vision for the podcast is to kind of share our journey into spirituality and sobriety and how those things and like social issues and all of those things and how sobriety has an impact on all of that, how it's changed maybe our perspective on how we view certain things and how it's created maybe a larger impact in our lives as we approach or come in contact with all these other things while we're clear and while we're connected and while we have the ability to not be stuck behind, beer goggles. Because I think that for me, when I was drinking, it was so easy to make my world very small and not have to be looking around and be aware of anything else that was outside of my immediate alcohol bubble. I think it just caused me to be really self-absorbed and not really give a shit about anything else. So this is kind of to me, it's going to be this exploration and this navigation of all of these things and experiencing them through the lens of clarity and like being present. And then also just a personal thing that has come to me and been something that I think is important. This might sound a little bit crazy, but I feel like I'm called to just impact a billion lives. And as we're seeing with the ripple effect, when somebody is impacted by something, that can go on and impact somebody else. So maybe I won't directly reach 1 billion people, but I think that as we build this podcast and we start to impact lives, that person will impact somebody else's life, and that will just kind of ripple out into communities, and that 1 billion might happen and we won't even know it, but I think that it's definitely something that can happen. And it sounds crazy, but I really feel like that's a thing.
It doesn't sound crazy though, because random side note, I was talking to a girlfriend of mine, and she was talking about like she's just going through this time, and she's trying to figure out. She's like, I know that I'm meant to change the world, and this woman's brilliant, and she knows what to say and when to say it, and she just speaks with so much clarity and so much love. She knows how to get the point across, and even if it's a hard point to take, it's still very uplifting. And I said to her, I was like, you want to change the world, but like you do change the world every time you're communicating with others, because it's the ripple, it's the butterfly effect. So like you change that person's inner perception or their perception, and then you change their reality, and then you change their world, and then they end up going to change other worlds. And I mean, that's really, that's just like talking about your 1 billion, like when you put a number on it, like 1 billion, that sounds crazy. It's like, oh, are you going to be shaking hands for the rest of your life? And it's like, no, but the more that I step into my truth, the more that I speak out about things that matter, and the more that I show up in love, that is a real possibility. So random story, but like it totally isn't when you think about how, and I think for me too, like I never saw life without alcohol because, to be honest, I just didn't know anyone. Like I didn't know anyone that didn't drink that had the type of life that I would want to have. I knew people, and this is no unlove because it was very much my perception. Um, but I knew people that were in 12-step programs, or people that were off the sauce or on the wagon or whatever it was. And from the outside, and it could have been my perception, or it could have been just not my group of friends. Surprise, just because people are sober, like, doesn't mean that if you're sober, you're going to like them. There might be people that don't like this podcast, and that's cool. Because they can make the podcast that works for them, because we need to show up in our sobriety, or we need to show up as a part of our sobriety, because like I didn't see any of those people living a life that I wanted to live. And then thankfully, which you'll find out, like how I got sober, I saw one person that was living the type of life that I wanted to live, happened to be on social media. And so I, after a bender, did what any normal person would do. And I like just messaged her on Facebook and asked her how to get unfucked, essentially. And thank God she was brave enough to talk about her sobriety. And so for me, from the moment that I got sober, and some would say probably too soon, and in retrospect, no, I would do it all over again. But like from the moment I got sober, I talked about my struggle with alcohol. I talked about my sobriety. I talked about the vision for my life. I talked about the vision that my life once was. And the reason why I'm so adamant about this project, so adamant about talking about sobriety, is I don't want people to have to go through that 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, 25 years, whatever, of heartbreak and emptiness that alcohol created in my life. And I mean, I wasn't a daily drinker. I know you weren't a daily drinker, and like, well, I'm sure we'll talk about this more. I'm sure I'm going over, but like, it just disintegrated so many things, my feelings, my passion, who I am, my self-confidence. And so if I can speak out in my own way and bring hope and a little bit of laughter and insight to these issues, then I have also changed the world. And before I wanted to like it, like in that same sense, like that 1 billion, like before I saw that on the outside and I was like, yeah, my ego was like, yeah, let's change 1 billion lives. Like, we're going to do it. And now, as you said, like when you talk about that butterfly effect, I'm like, yeah, let's change 1 billion fucking lives here. Pardon my language, but like, let's do it, because I don't care if it's 10 that really change and become something. Like, I want to do that because of the beauty that this brought me. So I love that that's your mission. And I mean, I would say mine's pretty similar. This has always been the missing puzzle piece, not just the podcast, but the things that will come along with it. This has always been like the missing puzzle piece in my empire, if you will, or my life, that I'm ready to do it. And I think for us as well, it's not just going to be us chatting, but we've really dug into our networks and social networks and the sober community and the alcohol-free community and people that don't even, people that may just not drink and do something else, like the spiritual community. And we've really dug up some really great people with really great stories and gifts and talents and ideas and visions to bring them to you, because I think it's easier. I don't know, when I was struggling without booze, or like, I don't know about you, Gabby, because honestly, that's one thing that we haven't talked about. So I'm really excited to hear your episode. But like, before I got sober, you should have seen my Google history. It was clearly apparent that I needed to get sober. And so I was looking for anything, like I was dying to find something like this that resonated with me. I was dying to find people like me and you and many others that I know that I just like couldn't find. And so if we can take that guesswork out of it and show up on social media, to show up on YouTube, to show up on these Spotify channels, and maybe be a little bit vulnerable and show our whole self, to give people hope, that's what I'm after.
Yeah, I think that kind of, so to piggyback off that, with the 1 billion, it's also creating the connections, because I think that people are searching for a sense of community, and that's why there are certain sobriety networks and programs that are very successful, because people are looking for community. They show up, they sit in a room full of people that are going through the same struggles as them. But I also want to add that, like, everything doesn't work for everybody. And for us, we found that, I'm just going to say, we found that AA was not something that resonated with us. But finding other things to be uplifting and to bring us, to a certain vibration. My life does not revolve around my sobriety. Sobriety was a side effect of my spirituality. So for me, it doesn't resonate with me or feel like something that I'm called to do, to go sit in a room and, plan my week around something that continues to bring up my alcoholism, if that makes sense. For me, I want to continue to focus on spirituality, and I want to be able to build a community. My soul longs for connection. I do. I was raised in religion, so the concept of going and sitting somewhere every week sounds great. I would love to connect with other people, and maybe in the future I'll use AA as a way to connect with other people, because I just love this sense of community. But I want to be able to also, sit with Ali, who I'm also so lucky that I have you as a friend, because we can talk about so many things that I could never talk about with someone else, But I think that creating that sense of community and building these connections, and you guys will begin to maybe develop a connection with us. And I look forward to, like, all the interactions that we're going to have, via social media or connecting on email or whatever. Maybe at some point we'll even have listeners just come on the show sometimes and have conversations. But I really look forward to the connections that are going to be built through what we're going to be presenting here. And we're not just going to be talking about spirituality and things like that. We're also going to be tackling some hard issues. We're going to have a series coming up talking about some of the things that occur inside the spiritual community or wellness community, where certain demographics just aren't represented very well. So there's going to be a lot of different things that we're discussing that are going to cover a huge spectrum of different things that are happening in our world right now.
Yeah. And I mean, we also, this is something that is just like us, it will always be evolving as well. And so with that, and I feel like this is definitely a partnership project, but this is also a community project. At least that's what we want it to be. And so as we close, I mean, is there anything else? I would really just, like, the people that are listening, I would love to hear if you want to hit us up on Instagram. Gabby will give those handles in a minute, but, like, I would love to hear, like, what you want to hear from us, or who you, if there's someone that's absolutely dynamic, even it might be yourself, but, like, who do you want us to talk to and why? Because, like, the more that we get people on here, the more that we talk about real things, that people that are either still struggling in addiction or struggling in spiritual bypassing or struggling in their first year of sobriety, whatever it may be, like, people in general that are yearning for connection, as Gabby said, the more that we can show up and talk about the topics that you want to hear about or they want to hear about, the more I consider this a success. Like, absolutely. I don't even care if there are, like, 3 avid listeners to this, but, like, we're hitting the points and we're taking them to church every week and they're like, man, like, this is it. We show up better because of it. Then I'm like, sold. This project gets an A+. So definitely, like, if there are any aspects of sobriety, of spirituality, of social issues, of, I mean, just anything in general, if you want to hear about our personal lives, because I'm an open book, let us know, because the more, we would be happy to take those recommendations and, make it work. And I mean, I would even, like letting us know on social media, and we can totally like give you a shout out as well, personally. But I'm excited. I'm excited to connect with all of you guys. I'm excited to connect with all of the other viewers. And Gabby, like, even though we've known each other for 10 years, like, I'm excited for this new journey together.
Yeah.
And I think that we're going to learn even a lot more about each other, which I didn't think was possible, but I mean, I already am. So that's fun.
Yeah. So
You have the
we
social
are
handles
gonna,
and stuff? Yeah.
yeah, we are going to be available on pretty much anywhere you can get a podcast. Any place that we're not available for podcasts yet is coming. Right now we are on iTunes, we are on Spotify. You can find us on Anchor. I'll post all the links in the show notes. You can also just find them on the website, which is mysoberbff.com, Instagram at mysoberbff, Twitter at mysoberbff. I've made sure everything's pretty much the same, so it'll be easy to find us anywhere that you want to look. And we will be on YouTube. We're not sure in what capacity yet, but keep an eye out for behind the scenes videos and the opportunity to see our smiling faces when you take a look. And yeah, I think that's it. Thanks so much for listening.
Yay, thank you so much. And then before I end, I always feel like I feel like this is something that I didn't clear with you, so we can you're like, oh God, what? But before we end, I would really like to kind of just ask you, like, what's one thing that you're focusing on this week or in the right now, and what's something of hope that you're holding on to, like, as you do that. It can be something easy, it can be something hard, it can go as deep as you want. But I think like this could be something really good to share just in the beginning.
Yeah. Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you took me on the spot. Yeah,
like,
so for
yeah.
me, for me, I set some intentions for 2020 and for this entire decade. And my biggest thing right now that I am focusing on is just surrendering to my own healing. I have a lot that I need to be working on, and that I have really been making that a priority, to sit down and work through all of the little pieces that, you know, were broken that I was covering with alcohol, because I am newly sober. I've been sober since July 2019. So, and I started drinking when I was 13. And, you know, they say that alcohol kind of stops your development. So, as you can imagine, I have a lot of shit I need to work through. So I've been working on that for a while, but I found that, again, with the clarity that comes with leaving alcohol behind, I'm able to go a little bit deeper than I was able to do before I stopped drinking. So for me, it's just going to be to continue to work through my own healing, and in that I found that I am able to be more effective in helping others and being able to listen better when other people are sharing their stories, and being able to have a greater impact on the lives that, you know, I come in contact with on a regular basis. So that's fine.
I love it.
What about you?
I think right now, I actually, after this, I'm going to this spa place, like it's a bathhouse, because I'm going to treat myself. But I think right now, just especially it being my birthday too, I wouldn't say I'm over. I think it's smart for people to say like they're over the triggers and like that addiction slapping you in the face all the time. But I don't have urges to drink anymore. Not often, if I do. And so that's really, I never thought that I would get here. But with that said, like, that still doesn't mean that I don't have a lot of other bad, different behaviors, behaviors of opportunity, if you will, that I need to work through. So yeah, this year for me is, I've spent the last 2 years kind of figuring out how I work and doing as deep of healing as I can. But I've always been the type of person that, like, when I first got sober, this guy gave me a 12-step book because I went to an AA meeting. And so I read the first, I think it's like the first 160 pages. And they tell you to read that, and then it goes into stories. So I read that in one day and did the steps on my own in one day, and then thought I was healed. And turns out that's not how it works. But I went in, like, I cracked the code the next day, and that was embarrassing. But like now, like I've spent the past 2 years like really working on that part of my healing. And so this year is kind of just like for me working on the healing, but stepping into all that I know that I am, because like I've almost used my healing as a clutch, especially I would say the past 8 months, to where I'm like, well, I need to do this before I'm ready. Before I'm ready, I need to do it all. I need to do the whole life workbook, and then I can get up and talk about life. And turns out that's not how life works either. So AA and life are kind of similar, I guess. And so for me, it's just like doing the damn thing, figuring out who I am through action now, and letting those triggers arise, rather than taking a back seat and trying to think through it all. And so yeah, I mean, the thing for me is like I I I just think back to probably my lowest point in drinking, and I'm like, I don't ever have to be there again. So if I fall flat on my ass, whether it's a podcast, a live video, a coaching session, whatever, if I fall flat on my ass in business and life and romance, whatever, like I will never be there. So that's still a win for me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's just my main focus is making sure I'm pushed forward. And thankfully I have accountability in you to call me out and others. So yeah, that's what I'm going through right now. And I'm just really excited to get this off the ground.
And here we
and
are
like
just
start learning. Yeah,
not
we're doing
not
it.
waiting until the perfect time or freaking out and making a huge list of things that we need to do. We're just doing it. And that's huge for both of us, because you'll find out more about who we are as people later,
yes.
But that's huge for both of us. So yeah, I don't have anything else to add. I think that I'm complete here. So how about you?
Samesies. All right. Well, we will see you guys all very, very soon. Let us know. Hit us up. Let us know what you want to talk about, and just introduce yourselves, because we wanna build our own community. So shoot us a follow, send us a message, and we will definitely connect. Have a beautiful day. Bye. Bye.